CBS Sports presents the NCAA Tournament Selection Show, sponsored by Pizza Hut and their new MVP four-topping pizza.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Nance in New York, along with Billy Packer and Mike Francesa. We are moments away from learning which 64 teams will embark upon the road to the Final Four and what paths they will have to take. But before we head out to Kansas City for the live announcement of the tournament pairings, let's quickly update you on two conference championships that just concluded about a half hour ago. First, in the Southwest Conference, the Razorbacks of Arkansas ripped off a 19-2 run to start the second half and win the SWC championship and revenge over Texas, who had beaten them a week ago. Alabama beats Tennessee, preventing the Volunteers with 21 losses making the field. The Volunteers would have set the all-time record in losses making the field, and they won that game today. All right, without much further ado, let's go out to Kansas City, where Greg Gumbel is there to take the honors away from us. Greg, do it to us, please.
All right, Jim, thank you, and welcome to Kansas City, everyone, where it's been the hub of basketball activity for the last couple of days. And as Jim Nance says, without further ado, let's first tell you about the four #1 seeds in the tournament. Here they are. North Carolina is the #1 seed in the East region. Arkansas, the #1 in the Southeast. In the Midwest, it's the Buckeyes of Ohio State. And in the West, it's top-ranked and unbeaten UNLV. So those are the top teams. Now here's how the bracket looks, and we will begin in the East with Thursday games first at College Park, Maryland. The #6 seed Wolfpack of North Carolina State. Great job that Les Robinson has done in his first season out of the Atlantic Coast Conference. They'll match up against the Golden Eagles of Southern Mississippi, making their second straight appearance. The 3rd seed Oklahoma State Cowboys. Coach Eddie Sutton becomes the first coach to take 4 different schools to the tournament. The Cowboys will meet the Lobos of New Mexico in with a 20-9 mark out of the WAC. Coach Gene Katie's Purdue Boilermakers are the #7 seed in the East, making their 8th appearance in the last 9 years, and they'll take on the Temple Owls at 22-10 out of the Atlantic 10. #2 seed in the East, Syracuse. The Orange Men, winning their first ever outright regular season Big East Conference, making their 8th straight appearance in the NCAA, will play the Richmond Spiders, the tournament champions in the Colonial Athletic Association. Now, Friday games in Syracuse, New York. Top seed North Carolina, the Tar Heels, winning today over Duke at 25-5 on the year. They'll take on #16 Northeastern, the Huskies regular season and tournament champions in the North Atlantic Conference. 8th seeded Princeton, the Tigers, undefeated in Ivy League play this year, take on the Wildcats of Villanova out of the Big East. 5th seeded in the East, the Bulldogs of Mississippi State. The last 2 seasons, they finished 8th in the SEC. Coach Richard Williams turns them around to a 20-8 mark this year, and they'll take on the Hurons of Eastern Michigan, the Mid-American Conference regular season and tournament champions. The Bruins of UCLA pull in the #4 seed in the East out of the Pac-10, and they'll take on Penn State, the Nittany Lions, the Atlantic 10 Conference tournament champions, their last year in the Atlantic 10 before they move on to the Big Ten. Now, the winner out of the East will take on the winner of the Southeast at the Final Four, and these are Thursday games in Louisville, Kentucky. The Big East sends the Pitt Panthers in as the #6 seed, and they'll face the Bulldogs of Georgia out of the SEC Hugh Durham squad, 17-12 on the year. The #3 seed, the Jayhawks of Kansas. They won this tournament, you'll recall, in 1988. They'll play the Privateers of the University of New Orleans, who enjoyed a 17-game winning streak this season in the American South Conference. The Florida State Seminoles, the tournament champions in the Metro, the #7 seed, taking on 10th seeded Southern Cal, and George Raveling, it's his 3rd team to go to the tournament in addition to Washington State and Iowa. And Bob Knight's Indiana Hoosiers, the #2 seed in the Southeast, making their 20th appearance. They'll play Coastal Carolina, champions in the Big South Conference, and then beat Jackson State in one of the NCAA's play-in games. Now, continuing on in the Southeast in Atlanta, these are Friday and Sunday games. #1 seed, Arkansas. The Razorbacks will play the Panthers of Georgia State, the tournament champions out of the Trans-America Conference and making their first NCAA appearance. 8th seed, Arizona State. The Sun Devils enjoying a winning season for the first time since the 82-83 season. They'll play Rutgers, the regular season champions in the Atlantic 10. The Demon Deacons of Wake Forest, the #5 seed, making their first appearance since 1984. They'll play American South tournament champion Louisiana Tech. Alabama's Crimson Tide, SEC tournament champions. Coach Wimp Sanderson brings them in against the Racers of Murray State, 4-time defending champs out of the Ohio Valley Conference. Now remember, it'll be the East against the Southeast in the Final Four, and that's half the bracket. We'll take a time out here, and when we come back to Kansas City, we'll bring you up to date on how it looks in the other two regions, and we continue in just a moment.
Sorry I dunked on you. Yo, Tommy.
You got killed. Man, you thought you bring home the ball, Darryl. Get out of here. Let's go.
Well, it's all come down to this. 60 million trillion fans are waiting for this one last play. You know what's going to Dow Jenkins. He moves left, he moves right, he's double teamed, triple teamed, the whole team teams. Whoa! Now the only thing between him and the basket is his big ugly brother Wesley. He gives him the old shake and bake. His mom and dad are jumping up and down. Boy, is his brother jealous. He looks at the clock. 4 seconds, 3, 2, he's late, he shoots, He was fouled!
For all of you who ever dreamed of playing big-time basketball, Pizza Hut and the NCAA would like to say thanks for making it great.
The NCAA Tournament. 64 teams, one title. Get in on the madness before it begins with a special 24-page pull-out section only in the National Sports Daily tomorrow.
When you own the business and your customer needs something fast, you do it.
Avis is the only major rent-a-car company owned by its employees, and they're trying harder with a computerized return system to get you on your way faster. Avis, we're trying harder than ever.
Welcome back to Kansas City, everyone, as we continue now with the remainder of the draw for the men's basketball tournament for 1991. These are the Midwest and the West regions, and we'll begin with Midwest play Thursday in Minneapolis. And sixth-seeded, the LSU Tigers, making their 8th straight appearance out of the SEC. And Coach Dale Brown will take on Coach Jim Calhoun and the Connecticut Huskies, who finished strong in the Big East regular season play. Danny Nee and the Nebraska Cornhuskers pull down the number 3 seed out of the Big 8, and they'll play the Musketeers of Xavier. Pete Gillen, 6th year at the school. He's gone to the tournament each year. This year he's got a record of 21-9. Out of the Big 10, the Iowa Hawkeyes with a 20-10 mark will take on the Buccaneers of East Tennessee State, who won their 3rd straight Southern Conference tournament. 28 victories this season, a new school record. Coach Mike Krzyzewski's Duke Blue Devils, the number 2 seed in the Midwest, regular season Atlantic Coast Conference champions, Final Four team for the last 5 years. They'll play the Indians of Northeast Louisiana, Southland Conference regular season and tournament champions, and winners of the play-in game against Florida A&M. Now, Friday games in Dayton, Ohio, in the Midwest. Top-seeded Ohio State, the Buckeyes, Big Ten Conference champions, taking on the Tigers of Towson State, the East Coast Conference champions, both regular season and the postseason tournament. Georgia Tech is the number 8 seed. Making their 7th straight appearance in the NCAA, they'll take on the only independent school in the draw this year, the Blue Demons of DePaul, making their 19th appearance. They're 20-8 overall on the season. 5th seed, the Texas Longhorns, enjoying a 20-win season for the 3rd straight year, and they'll play the Peacocks of St. Peter's, who won the Metro Atlantic Conference tournament and draw their first NCAA bid in 60 years of basketball. 4th seed, St. John's, the Redmen, out of the Big East Conference with a 27th straight trip to a postseason tournament. They'll play the Huskies of Northern Illinois at 27-5 on the year, and the regular season champions in the Mid-Continent. Now, Thursday games in the West. We'll go first to Salt Lake City, where 6th seed New Mexico State Aggies, 23-5 on the year, a 3rd straight 20-plus win season. They'll face the Blue Jays of Creighton, Missouri Valley Conference regular season and tournament champions, and winners of 15 of their last 16 games coming down the stretch. The Pirates of Seton Hall, the Big East Conference tournament champions, draw the 3rd seed, 22-8 on the year, and they'll play Pepperdine, the West Coast Conference regular season and tournament champs there. They enjoyed a 16-game winning streak during the season. The 7th seed in the West, the Cavaliers of Virginia. Out of the ACC, they'll play the BYU Cougars, the WAC tournament champions, and they have to play on Thursday, Saturday site. They can't play on Sunday. That Mormon religion prohibits that. Number 2 seed in the West, the Wildcats of Arizona. Out of the Pac-10, regular season champions there. Lute Olson, 8 years at Arizona, 7 tournament appearances. They'll play the Red Flash of St. Francis, Pennsylvania, 24-7, regular season tournament champs in the Northeast Conference, and another play-in winner. Now, in the West, on Friday. These games will be played in Tucson, Arizona, and they'll feature the top-seeded Runnin' Rebels of Nevada, Las Vegas, Big West Conference tournament champions, unbeaten in 29 games. And they'll play the Grizzlies of Montana, the tournament champions out of the Big Sky Conference, 23-7 on the year. The Georgetown Hoyas, questions are whether or not they would have gotten in this year. A strong showing in the Big East tournament. They are the number 8 seed in the West, making their 13th straight tournament appearance, and they'll play the Commodores of Vanderbilt out of the SEC. The 5th seed Michigan State Spartans out of the Big Ten, and the Wisconsin Green Bay, the Fighting Phoenix, 24-6 on the year, and the tournament champions in the Mid-Continent making their first tournament appearance. The Runnin' Utes of Utah out of the WAC, the regular season champions there, they set a school mark with 28 victories this season, and they'll take on the Jaguars of South Alabama, regular season and tournament champions in the Sun Belt Conference. They sport a record of 22-8. Now, you want to look at the teams that, or the conferences that showed up with the best teams and the most teams in the tournament. Here's a breakdown. The Big East Conference showed 7 teams in the tournament so far. 7 teams, the ACC with 6, the Southeastern Conference with 5, and the Big Ten and the Pac-10 with 4. The Big 8 Conference has 3 teams in, and as we said, 1 independent team, and that is DePaul University. Those teams considered to have been on the bubble and are not included in the 64-team draw include Providence, Houston, Fordham, Alabama Birmingham, the Bearcats of Cincinnati, and the Explorers of LaSalle, who finished with a 20-10 mark. Plenty of questions. Well, we'll hand them over to Jim Delaney, who heads up the men's basketball committee and who's been hard at work the last couple of days to come up with this tournament situation. We'll also have some questions back in New York as well. So right now, let's turn it back to Jim Nantz, Billy Packer, and Mike Francesa. Guys?
All right, Greg, thank you very much. And folks, did you see it? That potential second-round game, Georgetown against UNLV on the second round Sunday. Wow. All right, let's put it in perspective for you. The West and the Midwest are on the same side of the bracket. That'll be your semifinal matchup at the Final Four. On the other side, it's East against Southeast. We'll come back, get the viewpoints from Coach Packer and Coach Francesa as we continue on the road to the Final Four on CBS in just a moment.
Final Four, call on Pizza Hut for the new MVP pizza, loaded with pepperoni, mushrooms, Italian sausage, and green peppers. Get one for $7.99 and a second for just $4 more. Now that you deliver, gonna change.
Announcing something you've never seen before in an inexpensive Macintosh. Color.
Extra strength Rolaids antacid. Stronger because it has more calcium carbonate, more than any Tums tablet, and salt-free. More calcium carbonate and salt-free. This settles it once and for all.
All right, welcome back on CBS. Again, the 1 seeds, Billy, UNLV, Ohio State, Arkansas, and North Carolina. Let's quickly take it right back to Kansas City. And our man there, Greg Gumbel. Take it away, Greg.
All right, thank you, Jim. And joining me is Jim Delaney, who headed up the men's basketball committee and came up with the 64 teams that are now in the tournament. All kinds of questions, Jim. First of all, let me ask you about Ohio State, a #1 seed, despite having lost its last 2 games down the stretch. Your thoughts and the committee's thoughts on that?
Well, in general, I think line 1 and 2, with the exception of UNLV, were considered to be very close. And Ohio State was under a lot of a lot of review because they had lost their last 2 games, but to quality opponents and on the road. But I think there was a general sense that they had accomplished a great deal during the months of January and February. Were in everybody's 2, 3, or 4 positions throughout the season, and that the main competition was coming from Indiana, and the fact that they had beaten Indiana head-to-head on 2 occasions, once as recently as about 2.5 weeks ago, really in the final analysis. Although I think the committee recognizes that in the areas 2 through 7 or 2 through 8, there was a great deal of parity.
Okay, let's check back with Jim Nance. Jim?
All right, Jim, a skeptic would say that the NCAA would like to, so to speak, stack the deck against UNLV. Here in New York, we're all in agreement that the West is by far the most difficult bracket. Is it balanced against UNLV?
Well, I would say this. I think, we asked Gary Cunningham, who was a coach at UCLA, and a number of other people who've had a lot of basketball experience, to try to judge where they wanted to go. And our sense was overall, all 4 regions are particularly tough. I think what makes the West particularly tough is the fact that UNLV is in it. So UNLV has been head and shoulders above the competition last year. They've been head and shoulders above the competition this year. And I think that if you pulled UNLV out of that and put them in any of the other 3 regions, they would be considered to be the strongest of the 4 regions. So I really think it's the presence of UNLV that makes that region appear tougher than the other 4.
Jim, one of the things that I noticed right away is the power conferences roughly got 70% of all of the at-large selections. And what I would be concerned about if I was one of the fellows in the smaller league, and let's take the Patriot League as an example, and you've got to Fordham. They end their season 24-7. They have wins over Xavier, Dayton, Seton Hall, Vandy. They also played St. John's and St. Francis, teams that will be in the NCAA tournament. 4-2 record against those clubs, and they're not in the hunt. My question would be, what is the future for these smaller leagues and some of these teams that just can't either get those type of power schedules or certainly aren't going to have that opportunity for the exposure?
Well, I think your point is a valid point. I guess I would counter with the fact that Northern Illinois is a mid-major and has made a showing in the tournament. The University of New Orleans is not considered to be from a major conference, and they made it in as an at-large. I would look at East Tennessee with a high seed. I would look at Princeton with a high seed. I will say that there are some scheduling advantages that go to those who are in more established conferences. But at the same time, I think you can make an argument that this field, notwithstanding the fact that there's strong representation from the major conferences, has played very well to the mid-major, both in seeding and in the selection process.
Jim, you mentioned Northern Illinois and New Orleans. Now, Fordham had better quality wins at a conference than those 2. What put those 2 over the top instead of, say, a Fordham?
Well, I think that's the conclusion that you've reached. I think the committee took a look at the schools that were on the bubble and concluded that both Northern Illinois and New Orleans merited selection on an at-large basis. And I think that reasonable people do differ on giving certain values to certain wins. But my sense is that this committee process, probably because of a number of ineligible teams and because of a lack of power in certain conferences this year as compared with last, played very well both in the seeding and the selection to the mid-major.
All right, Jim Delaney, thank you very much. And Greg Gumbel, thank you for a job well done from Kansas City. And when we come back on the road to the Final Four, we're going to go right back through the brackets again. Mike and Billy will talk about it as we continue here on CBS right after this.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. For more than 215 years, the men and women of the United States Marine Corps have responded to the challenges that have faced our nation. Challenges that required courage and determination. Maybe you can be one of us, the few, the proud, the Marines.
Now you can get an NCAA mini basketball from Pizza Hut for $2.99 with any pizza purchase. But hurry, they're moving fast. The 1991 NCAA mini basketball for just $2.99 at Pizza Hut.
Making it great. When you own your own business, you sweat every detail.
Avis is the only major rent-a-car company owned by its employees, and they're trying harder with a 49-step quality control program to give you a well-maintained car. Avis, we're trying harder than ever.
Wouldn't it be great if instead of being in hot water with your boss, you were in warm water, the Caribbean, and swimming toward you was a beautiful fish? No, it was a woman. And yes, she had beer, Keystone. The premium cold-filtered beer in a can that tastes like beer in a bottle because of Keystone's specialty line can. And wouldn't it be great if you told your boss to take that job and sure, I'll have another? Keystone and Keystone Light. Bottled beer tastes in a can. Wouldn't that be great?
All right, a chance to secure your own brackets at home, and let's start out. Billy and Mike, first in the East at College Park, Maryland. This is a Thursday-Saturday combination. North Carolina State against Southern Mississippi, Oak State, New Mexico, Purdue, Temple, Syracuse, Richmond. What do you think?
I think Syracuse got a tough game. Anytime you go up against that Richmond club, that's no fun in the first round.
It's close to home for Richmond, Billy.
I would agree to that also. It'll be interesting to see if this Gene Keady team of Purdue can continue to roll. They've played very well here of late.
Southern Mississippi is a team really slipping. I like that team early in the season, but what's happened to them?
I really can't speak for them, but anytime you play in the NCAA tournament against a team that has guard play like NC State has, they'll have to be at the best in order to come out on top.
Corgiani and Monroe for North Carolina State will challenge Southern Mississippi. All right, let's go to the other side in the East. This is Syracuse, and at that site, North Carolina and Northeastern, Princeton, Villanova. What a game that is.
Great first-round game.
And anybody that questions Princeton at all in the Ivy League, I think that this is a club that deserves their seating at number 8 and is a very talented team. Villanova will have their hands full in that game. A little bit of rivalry close to home there.
Let's move the Bruins. Let's just move the whole campus to the east, all right? They were in the East last year. Here's UCLA coming east again.
A very good shooting basketball team. Penn State surprised me a little bit the way they played in their tournament, but UCLA is a club with an awful lot of offensive power.
All right, in the Southeast, this is in Louisville, Kentucky, and again, a Saturday combination for these games. The Pitt team, the enigmatic team from Pittsburgh against Georgia. How do you see that one, Mike?
I think that's two enigmatic teams. I think that Pitt hasn't played well. They have underachieved. I think Georgia at many times this year is underachieved, so who knows what happens there.
I'll tell you a surprising one out of that bunch.
I know.
Coastal
Here he
Carolina.
He loves this game.
Speak, but I'll tell you, Bob Knight, of course, has had some problems in opening round games. As we can remember, Coastal Carolina will be a team that Indiana will have to look out for.
George Raveling got his bid for the Trojans, Mike.
Yeah, and they came on, and the Pac-10 got 4, and Florida State.
That is a football game.
That is a heck of a football game, as a matter of fact.
Bobby Bowden and Larry Smith. Okay, in the Southeast in Atlanta, Friday Sunday combination, Arkansas. The 8-9 game there is Arizona State Rutgers, maybe nationally the least appealing of the 8-9 games, which have some terrific matchups in this tournament.
I think a big key and an emerging story is that the A-10 got 3 teams, got Rutgers in along with Temple, which was a point this week of some controversy. And how does Wake get a 5 seed?
I don't know. You know, the Wake-Virginia thing is interesting. Virginia with a 7, Wake with a 5. Wake Forest, though, playing extremely well from February on. And, you know, Murray State, Mike, you and I have
good team.
We have followed them.
But Alabama's coming on, too.
Alabama coming on strong. That'll be an interesting basketball game right there. 4-13, pretty big disparagement between two clubs that might be fairly evenly matched.
All right, let's switch now to the other side of the bracket, and this now is in the Midwest. From Minneapolis, a Thursday-Saturday combination, LSU, Connecticut. How about that one, Billy?
Well, the key to me in that particular matchup is Shaquille O'Neal in the tournament or isn't he? Dale Brown, of course, when asked, and I know that injuries played a part in the seeding, said, oh, yeah, he'll play. I mean, what would Dale say? I certainly hope he can play because that makes them obviously a much different club.
And I think the Midwest is the weakest of the 4 regions, and you have Duke there, of course, and Nebraska's played well. But I agree, Billy. Surprising that Connecticut's an 11 seed to me, too.
Yeah, and especially with Villanova being a 9 seed, some would have felt Villanova would be the last team from the Big East to make the field.
I agree.
All right, elsewhere in the Midwest, this is Dayton, Ohio. Ohio State's the 1 seed, shaping up for a round 2 game against Georgia Tech or DePaul. I like that game, Billy.
Georgia Tech DePaul will be an interesting game. DePaul with maybe more depth in that game. Some excellent guard play expected at Georgia Tech has really been reeling. Those 2 wins they had against Arizona and Virginia on the road were surprising even to Bobby Crimmins, and they have not played well in the last couple of weeks of the season.
And I think DePaul has really come down the stretch playing very well.
Mike, did the committee ignore the Texas terrible loss today to Arkansas and give them a 5 seed?
I think they did pretty much. I mean, I thought could be a 5, anywhere from 4 to 6. They were a 5 seed. Tommy Pendle's club will try to push it a little bit against a St. Peter's team that thinks defense first and wants the tempo of the game. They try to keep you under 60 points.
And Louis, you're headed to Dayton, Ohio to take on Northern Illinois.
Louis will have to find out who Northern Illinois is.
Let's go to the West and take a look at this bunch. First, the Salt Lake City site for Thursday and Saturday. New Mexico State. That was a 6-seeded team last year in the West, New Mexico State. And Creighton's a team you both have been telling me about all week.
Well, I like the way that they play, but I also like the way New Mexico State plays, and I think their athleticism would be superior, but Creighton's inside game is fun to watch. This Seton Hall team, of course...
They got some break, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
They win the Big East, they go to the West.
Yeah, but remember, they came out of the West when they went to the Final Four in '89.
Correct.
And as a matter of fact, they beat UNLV also.
Virginia and BYU, and you look at Arizona, it could be the Tucson skyline at BYU knocks off Virginia against Sean Bradley. Talk about a big game in round 2.
But I don't think there's any question, even when you look at that bracket right there, the fact that the West is loaded.
And especially in a 5 through 8, Michigan State, New Mexico State, Virginia, Georgetown really makes it strong.
I agree. It extends beyond just UNLV, which is at Tucson, playing Montana in round 1. And how about Georgetown? Vanderbilt, folks, next Sunday. Could be Georgetown, UNLV.
You're writing Vandy right off, huh?
No, wait, I wouldn't. I'll tell you a contrast, because Vandy plays out on the perimeter. They're going to shoot those threes and maybe be able to take advantage of that big guys inside.
How long, though, have we been talking about possibly Georgetown getting a shot at UNLV in the second round, and it does unfold that way? And Mike, you say South Alabama will give Utah fits.
I think Utah might go out in the first round.
All right, we'll come back with some final thoughts. The 64 teams are set, and we'll continue on the road to Indianapolis here on CBS in just a moment.
It has all come so far. Today, our engineers can crash test cars on a computer. If only they could have seen us 40 years ago. We had no idea we were inventing safety science. Most people today know nothing of all this safety pioneering, but I think Mercedes drivers, they know. I think they can feel it.
Why do fools fall in love? Why do opposites attract? Why do gentlemen prefer blondes? Why do women have all the answers? Why? Ask why? Dry. Cold filtered for smooth draft taste. Dry brewed for no aftertaste. Because if true love's not the answer, true refreshment must be.
During the Final Four, satisfy everyone with the new Pizza Hut MVP Pizza with 4 of your favorite toppings: pepperoni, Italian sausage, mushrooms, and green peppers. Get 1 for $7.99 and a second for just $4 more in delivery and carry out only. Pizza Hut, making it great.
The NCAA Tournament. 64 teams, 1 title. Get in on the madness before it begins with a special 24-page pull-out section only in the National Sports Daily tomorrow.
Well, we're all unanimous in terms of difficulty of brackets. Yeah, on one issue. Mike, run them down. Toughest first.
West, South. You know, all week people ask me, who were the teams that you feared, teams you didn't want to play, and Georgetown was one of the 2 teams I'd feared all along, and we get them the second game if we win our first game, in all probabilities. So, you know, I think Georgetown's a very dangerous team. I got great respect for their team. You know, I think the brackets are strong. I think the 4 seeds are probably the 4 best teams right now. Carolina's big win over Duke, I think, solidified that.
Jerry, back in the 50s, late 40s, they took a Kentucky basketball team and put them into the NBA. What do you think? Can the Las Vegas team go with you to the NBA, a possible expansion team?
I tell you, I just hope we can win in college. I just hope we can play well in this tournament here. You know, I really think on a given night anybody can beat you, and certainly anybody can beat us on a given night.
Jerry, your team played 3 games in 39 hours, looked sluggish in the final of the Big West. Are you satisfied that your team is in a good frame of mind to start the NCAA tournament with a possible meeting up with Georgetown very early on?
Well, you know, I think our kids are going to be ready for the tournament. They've worked hard all year, and you know, I think we're playing real well. We didn't play real good today the first half, but it was, you know, we didn't finish yesterday till about midnight and then had to come back at noon the next day, and I think we were a little bit slow defensively, but we've been playing well. I thought we played really well in the semifinals of our tournament.
A lot of pressure on you. Everybody will consider it a disappointment if you don't win this tournament, and some will be surprised if you don't win every game convincingly. Can your kids handle that kind of pressure?
Well, I just hope we're as good as people think we are.
Jerry, congratulations. You've had a terrific 2-year run, and best of luck in the NCAA.
Thank you, Rick.
Jim Valvano is standing by. He's got a question for you, Jerry. Don't go away yet. Jim?
Yeah, Tuck, congratulations, obviously, on a magnificent year. What I want to ask you is, are you ready
for the slowdowns that you're going to face? You know, you had a big game at Arkansas, but that was 112 to like 107. Are you ready to see Montana? They can't do it to you, but the Georgetown Vandy winner can. I know Long Beach State tried it. What are your thoughts on the club's going to come out and just kind of put the ball away?
You know, I think our kids can play at any pace. You know, we like to run, but we're not a racehorse team. We like to run, but we're primarily a half-court defensive team, so I think our defense can cause some problems for teams that want to play slow. You know, I'm not really concerned about a slowdown team as I am a team like Georgetown with Matubo and Mourning. Those two guys concern me a lot more than a slowdown.
Okay, I ask you one other question, Tark. Was it a problem towards the end of this year maintaining that mission attitude that your club had? Because you were early on in the year, really, for most of the year, but then lately I thought I saw a little letdown. Did you let down a little bit? And was that a little problem towards the end of the season?
You know, if we did let down, Jimmy, it wasn't very much. You know, these kids have played hard practically the whole year. You know, I've had some real good teams in the past, and, you know, they'd get a big lead at halftime. In the second half, they'd go through the motions. But this club has played just about every ball game all year, and this has been an unusual group of kids. They're the best group of kids I've ever been around, and they've played hard all year. I don't really feel that we've had much of a letdown, if any.
Okay, Jerry, thanks very much. We appreciate you coming on. And, Jim, you stand by. Our NCAA Tournament Selection Special will continue. Standing by in his dressing room in Las Vegas is Bill Cosby, eager to pay off in a bet. We'll hear about that in just a couple of minutes. Jumps out at you. We both think, I think, that the East Regional may be the weakest of the four.
Well, I think anybody can come out of that seed, certainly. You have North Carolina being one, but I look even at a Mississippi State 5 having a great shot at it. You have Villanova playing Princeton. How about that style of play going against each other? That should be interesting. Oklahoma State could go. They've had an outstanding year, so I think it's wide open in the East.
Villanova, Princeton, who can slow the ball down more is the question. Usually they're terrorizing an up-tempo team. UCLA, I think, a team to watch out for. They have underachieved at times, maybe the most mysterious team up and down, but they have tremendous talent. They have a lot of go-to guys. They have experience. They would be seeded to meet North Carolina in one regional semifinal.
And I think Syracuse is well rested. I think they should be ready for this bracket, certainly. But I think Syracuse will pose problems for everybody they face, and I look for them to possibly move on.
Okay, I want to bring in Dick Vitale once again, standing by in Iowa. Dick, you get a chance. So what's your comment right now upon a second look at the brackets?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Chris, you look at the brackets right now, the West is definitely the toughest region. I mean, you talk about the West right now, they're letting Jerry Tarkanian have to beat, you ready for this? He's got to beat Georgetown. He's got to beat definitely Michigan State because they're going to say bye-bye to Utah when they get a shot to play Utah. And then he's going to beat Arizona. And if there's one team that could create a nightmare, I think, for UNLV, it will be Arizona with their giants inside. Remember this, they had the one great game against Arkansas. Mills is capable of a super game, and their backcourt is good enough, Muehlbach and Othick, to give UNLV trouble. They are not Lock City to get out of the West. West is the toughest region. Weakest, I think the East is the weakest region. I think Carolina wins the East and comes out of the East.
Dick, what about the Midwest region? Let's look at that now. Ohio State, the top seed. Shaquille O'Neal, of course, a big factor. His health, LSU seeded number 6, but whether or not he's 100% is going to affect that side of the bracket certainly a lot.
Well, I like Texas in there as a real sleeper. If you had to talk about a team not seeded in the top 4, certainly Texas can be there. I think Ohio State struggle city. Lose their last 2 games, been struggling a lot of close games. I like Duke. Remember this, Duke, they were beaten severely last year in the ACC tournament by Georgia Tech, and then all of a sudden, they had Phil Henderson. He went into a tirade in the locker room. Duke got excited. I think Duke, again, will go back to the Final Four, so I like Duke coming out of the Midwest.
Dick, how about Arkansas in the Southeast? You see them coming out of that region?
No, I think that Arkansas, to me, will not come out. I like Indiana. I like their motion offense. I like the way they're playing, their execution. They don't have the kind of athletes in terms of depth as you look at Arkansas, but I like Indiana coming out of the Southeast.
They would have to play Kansas, then. They would be seeded to meet in one regional semifinal. Thanks very much, Dick. Stand by. We'll get your final 4 picks from Mr. Vitale, also from Mr. Patina. We'll also have Bill Cosby paying off a bet. John Saunders, you're one worried guy right now. Meanwhile, take a look at teams on a roll heading into the NCAA tournament. The NCAA tournament. Meanwhile, the Big East has the most teams. Big East has 7 teams in. ACC with 6, the SEC and the Big Ten each with 5 teams. You want to talk about the lowest at-large teams, the bubble teams that barely snuck in. New Mexico in the East region and New Orleans in the Southeast region. They are at 14 seeds, the lowest seeds to sneak in, so the Privateers are in. And the Lobos are in after a lot of years of frustration.
I think they deserve it. It's just that. It's been a couple of years now where they haven't gotten in. They've had good records, certainly. They did play a good schedule, but a little disappointing some of the other teams not making, especially my beloved Friars.
And also Cincinnati not getting in despite playing some teams tough.
Well, Cincinnati, though, had a tough 2 weeks. You could see that. But it teaches all of us a lesson to play a good, tough non-conference schedule.
Okay, Dick, back to you. You gave us a sneak preview, but America is waiting for you to once again reiterate your final 4 picks. Let's run them down for us.
Well, I'm going to go with North Carolina, with Indiana, and Duke, and certainly UNLV. Hey, you tell Valvano and Cosby, they both were wrong. I was right. I said it was going to be Temple and Rutgers, Lock City, to get into the big dance. And crying time, Southwest Missouri State will be chanting, we're number 65. Fordham, Siena, they belong in. Let me tell you this. You tell Jim Delaney, 50% should be maximum out of any conference, because I think it's ludicrous to play an entire year, have 7 teams from a conference in the tournament when you have a situation where these other clubs win 23, 24 games, and I don't want to hear them moan and groan. They don't play quality teams, because the big boys don't give the Sienas and those people a chance to play them unless they play them on their court, and I think personally it is unfair to the Fordhams of the world and the Sienas and the Southwest Missouri States that they are not part of the big dance.
Yeah, Dick, but everybody can't go to the big dance. It's easy to say which teams should go that didn't go, but which teams are you going to knock out? You're saying Villanova should not go. You're saying there should not be 6 teams from the ACC. I mean, who gets knocked out so those 4 or 5 can go?
Very simple, Chris. If you're a mathematician, and I'm a dummy when it comes to math, baby. Yes, I mean, I got to maybe go to school with Cosby at Temple. I can't figure math out, but if you give 50%, hey, if you don't finish in the top 5 in your league, I think it should be out, baby. You have to win your postseason, win the championship of that postseason, and everybody should have a postseason. Big Ten, Ivy League, everyone. So it gives everybody one last shot like Tennessee to chase that dream. And by the way, Valvano, I should be on that show, not you. I should play a coach on Cosby's show because I said they're in there. Unless, let's go V square, 2 assistant coaches. I'm jealous. I want to be on the Cosby show.
All right, Dick. Thank you very much. I disagree with you. You got to have the best at-large teams in the tournament, regardless of what conference they come from. Now, Jim Valvano, your regional winners, your final 4 picks, please.
Well, let me just say, beneath all of Dick's discussion there, he only really cared about one thing, and that was the Cosby Show. Unfortunately, Dick, there can only be only one Italian on it, so boom, you're out, and I'm on. Bill, I'll be there. All right, here's my final 4. In the East, I think Jim Boeheim's Syracuse club is going to put the Big East tournament behind him, and they're going to go after it with a club on a mission. All right, now here's a surprise here in the Southeast, and maybe you'll understand why. All right, I think Alabama is going to make it. I have been threatened with bodily harm from the wimp rag here. And so, Alabama, roll, Tide, roll. But incidentally, they have a very fine basketball team. I was really impressed. I had them earlier in the year, and they just improved. Waits, who played a terrific tournament in the backcourt, and Sprewell has gotten much better, and Wimp does a super job. Bring the plaid coat. They just might do it, I'll tell you. Okay, then I think Ohio State is going to do it. I think that once they thought they had the Big Ten wrapped up, a little bit tough going on the road, and some clubs who are trying to get in. And lastly, Nevada, Las Vegas certainly is going to be there.
So, Jim, under duress, you like Alabama to get into the Final Four. What about looking ahead now? Can anybody stop UNLV, or we just hand them the trophy right now?
I really agree with the fact that the way it is right now, Vegas is going to have as difficult a time getting there as is possible, because they're going to have to beat all kinds of clubs out there. As I say, if Georgetown does get past its first game, now Vegas is going to have to play a club that likes to play games in the 60s with 2 big men. They got to do that. If they wind up playing Arizona, they got a club that has the 2 big guys and is a dynamite basketball team. So, yeah, they're going to have to face a lot of different teams. And so I think it is tough out there, but I do think Vegas will make it back.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. Be careful, all those Alabama fans there on that wimp rag. Now, Rick, what about your final 4 picks?
I'm going with UNLV and Duke.
What a shock, UNLV.
Syracuse and Arkansas. I think everybody's selling Arkansas short. Arkansas has great pressure defense. I think that will bother Indiana, that full court pressure.
So you like UNLV and Arkansas as top seeds, but Duke, despite the fact that they got waxed in the ACC final, you like them to regroup just as they did last year, as Dick pointed out.
You can't argue with Mike Krzyzewski and Duke. 4 out of 5 years he's there. He'll be back, I think, once again.
And Syracuse, the early exit from the Big East tournament, but you like them to the Final Four.
I think Syracuse is very talented, could have been a #1 seed, and they're well rested. I think they've had a lot of time to obviously prepare.
Okay, terrific. When we come back now, as promised, we've been talking about this. This is the Time to pay off the Atlantic 10 bet. We'll hear from Bill Cosby and John Saunders and Mr. Valvano when we come back. Don't go away. NCAA Tournament Selection Special continues in a minute. This whole bet.
Bill, thank you very much for joining us here, but we have to point out the fact that Rutgers finished higher in the Atlantic 10 than did the Temple Owls.
I don't care. I don't care. You see where I am? I am that little dot there. And I'm talking, and this is almost radio, and I don't care. I heard Jim say that he didn't care because he's from Rutgers. Well, if that's the rule, then I don't care because I'm from Temple. Now, John, you're Western Michigan, but you're also a Canadian. And what I want to know is, if the two of us get in and you don't, you're going to have to go to Saskatoon in February and sit on Main Street with no clothes on.
And John Saunders joins us now from New York. He was the loser of the bet. John, it's cold in Saskatoon in February, my friend.
You are not kidding, Chris Feller. I'm telling you, Saskatoon, in case people don't know exactly where it is, it's in Saskatchewan, which is the third province over from the West Coast, very far north, up above Oregon and Washington and all those states. And Saskatoon's about in the middle of the province, right in the middle of the prairies. And you're talking right now, if I was to go there now, it would be about 30 below zero. So you talk about sitting with no... I want to know how I got involved in this bet in the first place.
Well, you got involved because Bill Cosby set the terms.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that nice when a guy sets the terms? He knows I went to Western Michigan. They won about 3 games in the Mid-American Conference this year. Anyway, Jim Valvano is down in Nashville, Tennessee. He's all psyched up. He thinks he's going to be on the Cosby Show. I said America is not quite ready for that. And Bill Cosby's in Las Vegas, kind enough to join us once again. Gentlemen, you both got in, so I'm the loser in this one, but you're both celebrating.
Mr. Cosby, everybody say hello to Mr. Cosby. Hi, Mr. Cosby. All right, what these kind folks want to know, plus my mother's been calling me. She wants to know, when exactly am I going to be on? Mom, wait a second, Mom. Mom wants to know. Bill, when am I going to be on?
You'll be on in the 8th season, which we will be signing for. However, this is your champagne you're going to have. You celebrate this with anybody you want to, Jimmy, but you're on the Cosby Show.
Yes, let's hear it! Yes,
I am...
Mama V!
You will play an Italian.
What typecasting is that, huh?
Yes.
I wanted to play a Canadian.
A Canadian-Italian then.
From Saskatoon.
From
I'm also extremely happy that John is going to have his, you-know-what, stuck on the ice in Saskatoon. I think that's great.
And he better put some bear grease on his backside because he may stick to the pavement.
Are you guys aware that Temple and Rutgers could meet in the national semifinal? My goodness, this thing could escalate beyond belief.
Oh, yeah, and Rutgers will definitely win that game if that happens. Guaranteed.
Bill Cosby, you realize Temple could go up against Jim Valvano's Rutgers team in the semifinals?
I understand that, but I want Jimmy to stop being emotional about all of this. Okay. Because we've got some serious teams. Everybody's knocking UNLV, figuring, well, you were a little slow that time. Listen, these guys are going to go all the way, I'm telling you, and they will probably meet Temple in the finals.
Oh, he said stop being emotional, and now we got Temple in the finals again. I mean, practice what you preach there, right?
I can't do that.
I tell you what's going to happen. Temple and Rutgers are going to meet each other, and I'm going to play you one-on-one at halftime of the game.
No. I'll tell you what I will do. You know, this other Italian is having a problem, and I hate to see a bald-headed man cry. Would you mind if I wrote a little part for the Vital? We won't tell him what it is, but we'll have fun with him in the show with you.
Without question, that's fine, as long as Dick asks me on the air, and then I'll tell him, okay. I'd like you to ask us.
You are his manager. I will write a small part, not demeaning, but funful for him.
Also, Bill, it has to be a non-speaking part, because otherwise, you know, we wouldn't be on the show. There'd be no time.
Whatever you say.
Guys, let's talk a little basketball now. I have to go to Saskatoon, so you can at least humor me right now. Bill Cosby, can anybody stop the Running Rebels? I know you like them to go most of the way, but is there any team that you feel can give them a tough time?
No, and you have to really watch out for teams like that because they are so good that psychologically, sometimes to entertain themselves, what they do is they play poorly just to get themselves in trouble, to give themselves something to play for. And this is what you have to watch out for. When they meet, you got to also remember, and all these coaches know that, every team they face is ready to play the best basketball they've ever played in their lives. And this is what they've been meeting all the time.
All right, Bill Cosby, thank you very much. And I'll expect the tickets in the mail to Saskatoon, because if I have to go, the least you can do is pay for the trip up to the freezing weather. And Jim Valvano, thanks a lot, too. Chris Fowler, let's go back to you.
Yeah, Johnny, get that bear grease ready. That's a good tip from Bill Cosby. Rutgers gets Arizona State again in the first round, and Temple has Purdue seeded to meet Syracuse should they win that game and the Orangemen win. We'll have more in the special in just a second. And meanwhile, the magic touch, the coaches who have made the most NCAA tournament appearances. It's now Dean Smith on top.
Win in a big game. But to 6 Rebels, the biggest game of the year was February 23rd at the Thomas & Mack. The opponent, Irvine. The occasion, senior night.
When you remember me, if you remember me.
For the 6 Rebel seniors, it was finally time to say so long to the Thomas & Mack and to their fans. One by one, they came out the center court to a thunderous ovation.
David Rice.
It was just tremendous to be in front of the home fans one last time and to just kind of say thank you for the support that they've shown us over the years.
Chris Jeter and George Ackles took their bows. Then
Larry Johnson. Anthony.
Well, it was a really great experience. You know, your last game at home, it was one that, you know, brought a lot of sadness to me, but at the same time, a lot of joy because you know, we've had a lot of great memories here at UNLV.
Stacey Augman.
This night gave Rebel fans the opportunity to express their gratitude to a great group of athletes. But it also worked in reverse.
Second of all, it's because we also play in front of the greatest fans in the history of college basketball.
When you remember me, if you remember me, I hope you see it's not the way I want it to be. Or I'd be with you now, but wherever you go, my love goes with you. My love goes with you.
Time for some debate now. Are the Rebels the greatest team ever? What do you think, UCLA fans? How about you Tar Heel fans? We'll have a friendly little sports argument after this break. Stay with us.
As a native of Las Vegas, I have watched our city grow. At Nevada Citizens Financial, we help that growth by taking pride in offering Nevadans a wide variety of alternative financing, from mobile homes to custom homes, first and second mortgages at the most competitive rates. That's what Nevada Citizens is all about. That and a great deal of pride.
Nevada Citizens, we help Nevada grow.
Running a business is not child's play, not if you want it to be successful. If you're interested in providing your business with the best advantage for success, consider National Contract Staffing. Join the hundreds of businesses that already enjoy the advantages of National Contract Staffing. Less paperwork, better employee benefits, and reduced administrative expenses, to name a few. It's like having your own payroll department, personnel manager, and insurance division. To learn how your business can benefit, call National Contract Staffing.
I got running rebel fever burning up my mind. I got running rebel fever and it feels so fine. I don't need to see a doctor or stay in bed all day. The only thing I need is just to watch those rebels play. I got running rebel fever burning up my mind.
Hi, I'm Brent Marshall with Econo Auto Painting. Are you thinking about selling your old car and buying a new one but afraid of those high payments? Well, here at Econo, we say don't sell it, paint it. Come on down to Econo Auto Painting and let us paint your old car new again with our Poly Supreme finish. A sealer to seal off the old paint, our polycrystalline paint, and 2 full coats of clear urethane to give you a long-lasting shine. So come on down to Econo and let us paint your old car new again. And remember, at Econo, we do it right, we do it fast, and we do it for less.
They, whoever they is, say there is no single greatest college basketball team ever. I guess you have to include the UCLA teams of the late 60s and early 70s, not to mention a North Carolina team with Michael Jordan, Sam Perkins, and James Worthy. But I'm here to tell you, the greatest team of all time is right here in Las Vegas. It may not produce as many NBA stars, but the Rebels have the chemistry and the starting 5 to beat any team in any era. Here's Jerry O'Lennon with more.
The Rebels had just completed their most impressive victory of the year, knocking off second-ranked Arkansas on the road. The next day, the National said what Rebel fans had known all along. The Rebels just can't be beat. But the coach of the nation's best basketball team didn't agree with the Nationals' proclamation.
I think we could beat most teams, but in a one-game situation, anybody can beat you. And I think if you look back through history, generally the best team doesn't win the tournament.
But now there was a larger question looming than whether or not the Rebels were the best. The question became, were they the best ever? Better than even the great UCLA teams of the 60s and 70s. It's a question the players don't care to confront.
No, we're enjoying ourselves, and we go out and play hard every chance that we get, and we don't really worry about comparisons, because that's all just speculative, and we really don't have any control over what people think. Everyone has their opinion. All we can do is go out and try to be as successful as possible.
Besides, the Rebels were still in diapers when Lou Alcindor was skyhooking the Bruins into the Book of Legends. How could they compare who was better?
You have to realize we're a bunch of 22, 20-year-old kids who don't remember the teams that we're being compared with. We're familiar with some of the names, but we're not familiar with that style of play. The game has changed so much. There's so much more talent throughout the country. So, to say something like that really does not lend itself to any credits. So we don't really worry about that.
Instead, the Rebels have just kept winning. And with each 30-point blowout, more comparisons. For his part, Tarkanian has avoided saying his team may be the greatest ever.
You'll never hear that from me. I don't believe anybody should say that.
But Tarkanian isn't saying the question is totally without merit. He'll be willing to talk about the Rebels' place in history, just not yet.
I don't think you should ever judge a team like that until the season's over anyways, and, we have a long ways to go.
6 games to be exact, and if the Rebels win them all, the comparisons will really fly. Jerry O'Lennon, Eyewitness Sports Aid.
Back to the argument of how many current Rebels will make it in the NBA. I've heard all the way up to 7 now. I think that's probably a bit too much, but I think you can count on 5 at least getting that NBA shot.
On the break to Travis Mays.
Sacramento Kings coach Dick Motta said earlier this year that the Rebels couldn't beat his club on the Kings' worst night, and that UNLV wouldn't even come close to a CBA team. We'll never know about that. What we will know this June is the impact these Rebels will make on the NBA.
There's a potential of having 4 first-round draft picks if Anderson Hunt decided that he wanted to come out. Coming out of this year's basketball team, it's extraordinary. There's never, since the beginning time, at least from what I've known, there's never been more than 3. This year there is a potential of 4. They all are going to have great futures in the NBA. It's really quite exciting.
Larry Johnson has the most NBA potential. In fact, if LJ would have come out last year, chances are he would have been the #1 pick in the draft, ahead of Derek Coleman. His front court buddy Stacey Augmon is also a hot commodity who no longer has scouts wondering about his offense.
And Stacey with his great first step is going to be an attribute for him in the NBA. Larry, I think people are understanding and realize now that he can move his game outside instead of just pounding it inside. Their mental attitude is like fantastic. I think any NBA team will win with them on it.
Well, there's no question Larry and Stacey are going in the first round. In fact, I think both of them will probably go in the lottery.
Greg Anthony's stock has risen the most, according to NBA scouts. Last year, he wasn't considered serious NBA material, but now he's a probable first-round selection, depending on what each team needs.
So if I had opportunity to go out, that just hyped me up to be able to guard a guy like Isaiah or John Stockton, Kevin Johnson. I'd love to see where I match up with those kind of people. I could play in Waukegan, Illinois, or Spokane, or, Siberia. I don't care. I just love playing.
Anderson Hunt could be looking at NBA millions if he decides to enter the draft. But Hunt is only a junior, so he can wait until next year. A gamble with UNLV on probation.
Well, I see myself playing in the league. The only thing I got to do is, handle the ball more. Because in this system, my job is to shoot.
Anderson's got to handle the ball more next year. We'll change our offense around where he'll get to handle the ball some, and he just got to show people that he can handle the ball. There's no question about his shooting. There's no question about his defense, and there's no question about his running the court.
The jury is still out on George Ackles. The common thought is that Ackles could latch on as a free agent, but isn't quite draft material now that the NBA goes only 2 rounds.
If they repeat, then everybody's going to be looking at everybody, and then everybody has an opportunity.
After this team has broken up and gone their separate ways, whether that be in the NBA or the business world, lots of fans will remember how great these kids were on the court. Something that they may not remember, though, is just how giving this team is. They practice and play nearly every day of the week, but still find time to think of others. That's a champion. The Rebels were looking out for more than #1 when they ripped through the regular season. UNLV was one of the first teams in the nation to show support for the troops in the Persian Gulf by wearing an American flag patch on their uniforms.
We're really looking up to them, the great courage that they're showing. And I know they're watching us over there, and we want to, perform great, and we want to entertain them while they're not at war, while they're at, in their tents or wherever they're at. And just while they're relaxing, they can just watch, the running Rebels or whoever, and just be entertained at the time, take things off their mind, set their mind at ease.
Before the Arkansas game, the Rebels wanted to localize their support for the war effort by sporting a stealth patch on their shorts. The patch honors the men and women from Nellis Air Force Base who are involved with the stealth bomber.
Those men and women, they need all the support and the encouragement that they can get. And we just think it's something that's necessitated by the fact that they are over there doing their all for us. This is the least that we could do for them.
We really want to support and show that we're supporting them.
The Rebels not only made their presence felt overseas, but also here in Las Vegas. Earlier this year, Coach Tarkanian and the players visited Opportunity Village, a facility that provides work opportunities for the handicapped.
So I just hope we can make the kids a little happier here, and anything we can do to help. This is a great cause. These people do such a great job here, and they do it in real tough conditions. All these kids were in red. They were all Rebel fans. They were so excited.
It's a big experience for us, too. We very much like to have the opportunity to come and share some time with them because they're very special to us.
It was the first time many of these youngsters got to see their heroes in person, and they cherished the moment, milking the Rebels for pictures, autographs, and smiles.
I like all your guys, I do. I like all the guys.
It's a bravo!
A year of giving for the defending national champions, but there's one thing left on their fans' wish list. That's a second national championship.
We're playing for all those people who have been doubted in life, such as ourselves, and to show them that you can be successful.
If you ask any of the players why they're so successful, you often hear about the fans. That's you folks out there rooting them on and filling the Thomas and Mack for the Arkansas and the NC States, as well as the Pacifics. Photographer Mark Jacobs has a tribute to the secret of the Rebels' success, the fans who bleed Rebel red.
Yes, how are you doing? Fine. Trying to get
we'll take a short time out, but when we come back, what does it really feel like to play in the NCAA tournament? And we'll check the other 3 NCAA brackets with Larry Norris and try to figure out who the Rebels will meet in Indianapolis. We'll be back.